Hey, what's going on, guys? Doug DeMarco here, and I like comic books. That's right. Alright, guys. This will be kind of an unboxing. I do a lot of auction shopping through a website called Comiclink, which focuses only on comic books and original comic book art. It's a lot like eBay, basically, except you'll get some, better books and at cheaper prices for the most part, especially if you're a budget collector. Which is something I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit before I go through all this stuff. Is when you're collecting, sometimes you kind of get unfocused, and you will start branching out and collecting other things related to what your main collecting focus is, and then before you know it, you're kind of buried in an avalanche of stuff that isn't really your collecting focus. It's just it's just out there, something you thought was neat at the time, bought a bunch of it, and you probably shouldn't have because it's not as neat as you thought it once was. Because always remember, what I collect rocks, what you collect sucks. Anyways, I just wanted to focus a little bit on one of my collecting focuses. I'm using that word a lot, focus. And that is budget first appearance comic books. It's kind of a niche market. You can never really go wrong with a first appearance. It's always the first appearance of a character, obviously. And especially if it's, say, pre-70, it's a nice Silver Age, mid-grade, say around, a 5.0 graded book. You can never go wrong picking it up, especially if you're getting it at great prices. And the great prices I'm talking about are like $20 to $25. That's grading fees for most books. You're not going to beat that. So let's take a look at some of the auction winnings. First up, we have a 1965 copy of a Charlton comic, The Blue Beetle. Now this is the old Blue Beetle with Dan Garrett 1T. Before it was, not really bought, kind of stolen by DC. This is the origin and first appearance of Mentor the Magnificent, somebody nobody has ever heard of. But I picked this up for $21. You can't beat that with a stick. Grading fees alone, $20, not counting shipping. Not counting the $5 fee for CGC, so they can just look at your books. Yeah. In any case. Next up, we have a DC comic, Showcase 75. Now, this one has some great Steve Ditko art, and it has the origin and first appearance of Hawk and Dove. Now, these guys might actually get a television series at some point. There's a lot of DC properties getting television series. I know Cloak and Dagger on the Marvel side was rumored to get a television series. This is a 4.5. Let me grab my little paper, so I don't remember the price for all of these. Watch the dead air. I will be right back. And I'm not editing this. Alright, got my invoice. Altogether, it came up to $205. Plus $20 shipping, plus 3% buyer's premium. So, around $200 spent. And the showcase I picked up for... Oh, this is an expensive one. My mistake. This was $30. This was an expensive one. But first appearance of Hawk and Dove. I kind of liked them. They're one of those... this is one of the... not old, but CGC cases where it develops waves. And I'll have to get a reholder. Thankfully, CGC changed that. But... here's a 4.5 I picked up, also from DC Comics. It's a Superboy number 82. This has the first appearance of Bizarro Crypto. So, Superman's dog, Crypto. The Bizarro version. Bizarro! Bizarro! And it also has a full-page ad for Green Lantern number 1. This is from 1960. This I got a steal on. This is a 4.5. No restoration. No BS. And $16. $16. that's cheaper than what it costed to, grade it. It's cheaper than what it would cost to get it raw. That was a steal. Now, the most expensive book I picked up, by far, is a 3.5, so it's on the low side. It's an Archie number 36. Now, I paid $50 for this. $52. $52 for it. And generally, anytime I find an Archie that's number 50 or lower for $50, I'm gonna buy it, unless it's like really ratty. And that's usually raw. But this is graded 3.5. Got a great picture of Archie and Betty, or not Betty. Yeah, that is Betty. Oh, I'm terrible today. Archie and Betty, or he's over there being a little mischievous. It says books may be taken out for 2 weeks. He crosses that out and puts librarian may be taken out for 2 weeks. All right. I just love the humor. That kind of the kind of romantic humor of the early 50s, late 40s. That's 1949. This one's not a first appearance, but I love the cover and I love the character. So this is an Action Comics number 312 from 1964. It doesn't have any first appearances in it, but it has an appearance by Metallo. I always liked the Metallo character. Here's him blasting Superman with some kryptonite. And this is a 5.5. This is a nice mid-grade copy. And I believe I paid Action 312. I think I did pretty good on that one. Yeah, $22. Again, grading fees. Here's a non-CGC book. This is CBCS, which I have some books through. This is Adventure Comics number 317. I paid $22 again for this. This has the first appearance of Dream Girl. I love all those Legion of Superheroes. One of my favorite runs was the early Shooter run from I think 346 up, where it was just all new Legion of Superheroes. It was great stuff, great reads. Here's a nice mid-grade copy of an Avengers book, and this is Avengers number 19. This was a cheapie, $29. First appearance of the Swordsman. A nice mid-grade, $29. You're going to pay that. I mean, you go to a convention, they're going to ask $50 for it raw, and they're probably going to grade it, 6, 5, 7. That's a nice looking book. Origin of Hawkeye as a backup as well. Off-white pages. And that was it. Nice, cheap books that are meaningful. They're not just filler books that are graded. And you're picking them up for around, sometimes a lot less than graded costs. So, really, there's a couple other books in there, but that's none of your business. Anyways, if you guys like comic books, I would highly suggest checking out Comiclink. Generally, they're going to have a lot of very expensive comics on the first day of their auction. But, excuse me. But you're not going to buy those. I'm not going to buy those. I'm not going to pay $8,000 for a Amazing Spider-Man 129 in 9.6. I'm just not going to do it. I'll pick up a 9.0 for $1,000 if I really, really wanted it. But it's just not really worth it to me. Because I like the comic books. I like reading them. Now I'm not going to bust these out. I'm probably eventually, say Swordsman pops up in a movie, I'm going to throw that on the eBays and sell it, for a profit. But you should always really focus and set a budget. Regardless of what you collect, set a budget, $200 is my comic book budget. Whether I buy one book, whether I buy 0 books, or whether I buy a lot of books like I have here. A lot of nice, chunky, first appearance books. And that's really what you should, you can take that through all of life lessons, focus on what you want, set a budget, and stick to it, and you're going to come out ahead in pretty much everything. Anyways, those were my comic books. That's what I got. You guys be awesome, and thanks for watching. And in the comments below, let me know if you like comic books. I like comic books. Do you like comic books? If you don't, then you are a terrible person. No, you're not. No. Maybe a little bit. Alright, guys. Thanks for watching.